I'm Andrii Podanenko, and today we'll be talking about OpenY upgrades. And actually, I'm super happy that I'm not going to present you any slides with the code, because in whole my career, I was presenting with the code on the slides. This one should be pretty simple. Yeah, so I'm OpenY lead technical architect, but also I'm wearing two hats. I'm also a lead architect for the Twin Cities, because we need to understand from the core team how to work with OpenY. That's why I still test. I'm using the Twin Cities site, Twin Cities Digital Experience, as test platform for the OpenY. And also, I have a team behind my back. Here is Dima, who is the lead developer of our team, and we are on the bleeding edge of OpenY. Usually we use their version of OpenY. And we'll be talking about that experience, how to upgrade during this session.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Schedrov. I'm CEO of 5Jars. We are a full-service digital agency. We build websites on the OpenY, but with that we also introduce cutting-edge technologies like smart speakers, like Amazon Alexa, digital screens like you can see here. This one we've implemented with some of the YMCAs. And yeah, OpenY the core of our services, but we introduce a lot of different technologies. That's why we are here. We do work with nonprofits, 100% of our clients nonprofit. And yeah, and today we're going to talk about updates and OpenY upgrades.
Yeah, it looks like Alex got cold. So get well, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, and the reason why I like this OpenY summit specifically, because it's 2 p.m. and I already closed all the rings on my watch, just walking around to the restroom. So that's good. Session, and I'm done for this day. Rings are closed. Yeah, getting back to the upgrades. We will talk a little bit about OpenY upgrades from the OpenY point of view. Andrii will cover this as architect of the OpenY. Then we will move on to experience of YMCA Greater Twin Cities. Then I will cover OpenY upgrades from agency perspective, tips and tricks, recommendations, and our experience, because we've done many OpenY upgrades in a different way and learned a lot of lessons. And then also we prepared some useful materials that we will share at the end of this session with you, and we hope that you will find them helpful. All right.
Thank you. So, OpenY point of view. As Alex mentioned, that this presentation will be shared in our community board, because this is like a documentation where you can go and click on those links that leads to wiki page. But I'm going to start with OpenY release schedule. This is really important to understand, because we are relying on the best practices of Drupal community. Drupal community realized that back in the days when we were developing Drupal 7, there were some mistakes that we got lessons learned. Like, instead of doing big releases, like from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, or from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, or from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, it's better to move with the small steps, because in that case, it's easier for the community to proceed upgrades. You don't need to spend a whole bunch of budgets and effort to upgrade to the newer version right now with the Drupal. That's why we realized that we need to do quarterly releases. Quarterly releases for the major release. In quarterly releases, we keep new features and new enhancements as a major plan for the release. But also we have small releases, like every 2 or 4 weeks, we can release point release, which usually covers bug fixes or some hot fixes after major release. And there is a question, when to upgrade from OpenY to OpenY, right? And I want to split this for 2 answers, because as you know, we have small to mid and mid-major to big Ys. And strategy for these groups pretty different, because when you're a small Y, you have no resources to test new functionalities because you need to have a team, like big agency, that will cover majority of bugs or like regressions. So it's better for you to wait for the next point release after major release when the hot fixes and bugs already fixed landed, and that is more safe for the small and small to mid wise. But when you're a large Y, usually you have covered your back with some agency, and for you to get new functionalities, like to have new great features to test them, yes, it makes sense to test new releases right away. But there are some pitfalls that you need to avoid, right? And this is simple for the developers, but not always obvious for the content managers or the product owners. Like, never upgrade production. Yeah, we have Drupal as a core, and Drupal provides you nice features. Like, sometimes you can see that there is a message, like alert in your admin interface that, hey, your Drupal is outdated. Go here and update your core. You can click that, there is another step, and you click that step one more time, and your site is broken in production. That's because OpenY is way more bigger thing, way more bigger product than just Drupal. Drupal is just one part of the OpenY. So for that, ensure that your developer or your agency has all this in place. Like, we have development environment on our local computers as a developers. We can test everything there. Nothing will be broken except our computer. We can wipe it out, start from scratch. Nobody will hurt except of us, right? But also we need to show that update for the Y, for the content managers, for the stakeholders. That is all about staging. You need to have staging environment. This is usually happens on your hosting provider. Like, some hosting providers gives you that opportunity, gives you the dedicated server where you can copy your production to that server, do all kind of upgrades, test it, show it to the team, and in case if everything well, then you can go production release. This is really important. This is something that you need to have for sure. Another thing, as a product owner, you need to have user acceptance testing list. This is just an example of what we have in Twin Cities. It's probably 10% of the leads that we have in place, because Twin Cities is an elephant, is huge. But this is something that you need to take care of. You need to maintain and you need to keep it up to date. It's an inventory of all features that you have on your site, which is highly important to be shared with your agencies to ensure that during upgrade, none of this is broken. It's a roadmap for the upgrade from the business perspective, not from the developer's perspective. Okay, so how to do upgrade? And as a technical guy, I should be showing you some technical things, but the reality is that OpenY, yes, there is a code in OpenY, but it's only 20% of the story. Whole story is bigger, like community is what OpenY is. And before doing OpenY upgrade, go to the community board, go to the Slack messaging, and ask if anybody else from the community already did this upgrade. If any bugs found, if anything was not clear, because usually somebody else already tried. And what I realized that OpenY community is pretty shy, at least at this moment. Like, we used to keep silence instead of asking for our problems. That should be changed. We have a lot of tools. We have community board, we have Slack messages, we have monthly calls, you can drop me an email, any core team. Alex is open to any questions. Anybody from our core team and our partners open to this. Share your experience. I had a good conversation during lunch, and I shared that I can't stress more to this. Like, you need to share experience. You need to provide feedback, because core and OpenY need it even more. Like, how we get new features into OpenY? We are relying only on feedback. Yeah, we have some ideas. We are pulling information from Drupal community. But what good for Drupal? Not always good for OpenY. Not always good for YMCA. Feedback, what matters here. How to reduce your costs? Update regularly. This is really important because when you try to upgrade from OpenY 1.10 to 2.2, you'll face with a lot of issues. But when you try to upgrade from 1.10 to 1.11, you'll succeed. So this is really important, like to keep that regularity. And when you try to calculate budget spent for upgrade from really early version to the newer version and just merge all those small budgets, you'll be surprised that doing updates regularly is way less expensive. That's what we found in Twin Cities. Automate. This is not about development, because developers usually good in automation. We have a lot of tools, a lot of technical things that help us to make our life easier. This is about you as an owner of the site having some tools like Site Improve or New Relic. These tools are really powerful that do scan your site, and they provide you some reports. Like, for example, during an upgrade, Site Improve can find that 100 of your pictures 404 just missed it during upgrade. By doing that manually, you'll spend tons of time. Site Improve can do that in 5 minutes. So don't underestimate those automation tools. Same as for New Relic. Like, you can do upgrade your site, and New Relic will show you that page speed of your site like decrease it. You need to like fix it right away. You can't realize that when you use it through your browser, because usually YMCA tend to blame the internal network, which could be true, which could be not. And this one is also important. It's like backport. Imagine that you created some code for you, right? And next OpenY release, your developers usually will be facing with an issue that during upgrade, the script just removed your code. And every time when you do upgrade, you need to spend some time to maintain that code. And this is painful, and sometimes you will be spending even more time because that code can be not anymore supported by Drupal core. Nothing is steady, everything is moving forward. So when you backport that code to OpenY next release, that code will be with OpenY, and you'll be spending maybe just for regression testing sometime. But keep in mind that not all the code can be backported to OpenY, because back in the days, we were doing that mistake of like pulling everything to OpenY from different OpenY associations, and then OpenY started to be so huge that it didn't fit needs of the small Ys. So, but there is also thing that you can do, like you can build decoupled version of your custom feature, and decoupling means that anytime when you do upgrade, the OpenY won't be wiping out your legacy code, let's say legacy. So a few words about YGTC experience. YGTC is a YMCA upgraded in cities. So this is an upgrade timeline. Like, we started with OpenY release 0.1, which technically never existed, because only after 6 months we released fast OpenY 0.3 probably release. And only in 2 years there was next upgrade, because technically we were developing as a team OpenY. So what we did, we basically decoupled everything. We made everything reusable. So in case if you want to upgrade to next version of OpenY, don't do development of custom features. But it's not gonna work. So it's better to have 2 teams, for example. One team is concentrated on doing some product, new features, and second team is a maintenance team. These are different businesses. So whoever do create new features, it's a different story in comparison to the maintenance team, which has usually different workflow. So next release, it took us 6 months of deployment. Then to 2.0, it took us 3 months, as you can see. Just because we started to follow decoupled architecture, we started to follow upgrade past best practices of OpenY, and it took us just 1 month of deployment. I need to say you that it's not a development. Like, it's not like you need to multiply 1 month per like all hours. No, it's like from the beginning of the idea we need to upgrade to OpenY till the release to the production, it took us 1 month. Technically, these 3 releases were really painful. Like, we spent from 2 weeks to 2 months of tough deployment, bug fixing, regression testing. But here is the proof that OpenY is getting better. Like, last 3 releases, especially release to 2.1.3, took us 1 week of deployment. Technically, I spent just 8 hours of updating the code. Everything else was UAT, prepare for the release, management of the timeline, aligning our plans with the wider group, whatsoever. So what we expect for the next release, we expect the same 1 week. And keep in mind, this is Twin Cities. It's a top 5 YMCA in the world, so it's a huge site. In case if you are small or mid-Y, this number can be the same or maybe even smaller, because in case if you have no customizations, OpenY upgrade is pretty simple. Your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of this. And now let's take a look at the upgrades from the agency perspective and which questions usually we ask and what's important to know in order to set up the right expectations of the OpenY upgrades. So the starting point of all upgrades, and doesn't matter like if you're on 1.x or 2.x, it starts with one question: which version you're using right now. It might be a known version of the OpenY. Let's say you've set up OpenY 2 years ago and you haven't done any updates till today, which is not realistic. I hope there is no Ys on the unknown version. Or you might be on the 1.x or 2.x, so it's really important to know which version of the OpenY you use right now. Then once you know answer to that question, it's really important to understand which OpenY theme you are using. As example, you might be on the Rose, you might be on the Lily with some customizations, or you might have completely unique design for your OpenY website. And this will affect upgrades significantly. So once you know answer to that question, moving on to the next one. And this one is a little bit technical, but still you need to know how many custom content types or components you have. Let's say you have some unique content type which will display on the home page like testimonials or something like this, and it's not coming from the OpenY, right? So this might be custom for your specific association. Next one is how many OpenY components have been customized. Let's say you've installed the OpenY, and on the home page you have a gallery or banner, but you worked with your developer or agency and you added some additional call to action. This will be a customization because you actually modified component from the OpenY. So it's really important, at least on the high level, to know how many components have been customized. And then last question will be which new features from the OpenY you would like to enable. Let's say you have an upgrade for 1.x to 2.x, and you say that you would like to enable Activity Finder. That's completely different story if you would say, I don't want to enable it because it will require additional effort. So once you know all answers to these questions, then we can proceed to the and let's say take a look at 2 different scenarios, how your OpenY upgrade will look like. So the first scenario will be that your answer will be like that. I would like to upgrade from OpenY 2.x on Carnation without customizations and without custom components, and I don't want to enable new features, right? How realistic is it today? Probably not realistic at all, but this upgrade will take just 1 hour or something like that. So it will not require any effort for upgrade. But if we take a look at the another example, I want to upgrade from a non-OpenWire version with Lily, with customizations, with 30 custom components, and I would like to install Activity Finder and integrate with Personify. This is completely different story for the upgrade, and you have to understand this before talking to developers, agencies, or your internal IT department which supports OpenWire. So those two completely different upgrades. So, and basically, I mentioned that we've done a lot of upgrades from different versions of the OpenWire, and one particular is upgrade of YMCA Glitter Brandywine. We've done it 1.5 years. Yeah, Jim was here and Jenny. We went through that journey, let's say, and I would like to share just some highlights and a little bit of information how it was. So basically, when we started upgrade, that was our development team, and we saw that upgrade like this, right? We thought that we will spend like 100 or 200 hours, because that's still a known OpenWire version, and we are done there. But eventually, reality was a little bit different, and we haven't seen like we haven't seen that legacy part of the unknown OpenWire version. So it all happened in April and July 2018. So we've upgraded website from OpenWire from unknown OpenWire version to OpenWire 1.12.3, and guess what? We've spent 500 hours. That's just a rough number, but like it was approximately 500 hours. That was a massive investment. That was a massive upgrade. And our developers after this was like this, was red eyes, and like we are done here and we need to take a vacation and like get back to work a little bit later. So huge investment getting from OpenWire, from unknown OpenWire to 1.12.3. Then we were moving on to August when new OpenWire has been released with programming framework, with new schedules, and basically in order to upgrade OpenWire itself, we've spent up to 30 hours. I'm not talking about integration with CRM, just upgrade OpenWire. So then 2018, just updates of the OpenWire up to 5 hours with minor releases, like security releases, point releases that Andrii mentioned. Then March, there was a really major release of OpenWire 2.0 with decoupled components. And here again, we spent approximately up to 30 hours. Then security updates up to 5 hours. And just recently, we've upgraded website to 2.2.x with Activity Finder, and it took again 30 hours. So given that, we realized that major updates will take up to 30 hours, 50 hours, depending on the upgrade, and all other things will be specifically for they will depend on the association. Like Activity Finder should be integrated with ActiveNet, programming framework like with Group Exercise, with Group Expro or something like this. But the idea that Jim, Jenny, and Brandywine team did a major investment just to get to the latest OpenWire, and then we haven't missed any major releases, and it significantly it has been reflected on the numbers, right? We don't need any more 500 hours. Just go through that upgrade once again, and hopefully we will never need that again. So OpenWire upgrade in a nutshell. So what actually OpenWire upgrade means, right? So first, I would recommend you to create some kind of schema for the OpenWire upgrade, and I will explain this a little bit later. So schema, it means that you can categorize all your things on the website and put it into different baskets, like custom, coming from the OpenWire, we use it as is, it's slightly changed, and I will explain this a little bit later. So once you have a schema, you can do an audit of the website. It might be your team, agency team, developer, like wherever you have resources, so you can perform an audit. Then you create, and that audit became a roadmap of your upgrade. So you will have like step-by-step guide how to upgrade the website. Then you perform actual upgrade. That's the biggest part, where development happens. And I really encourage you looking at the backporting when you do the upgrades. And basically, I will explain all these items in details in the next slides. And then, once you've done with update and backporting, plan the next release. Andrii shared the release cycle. So there are 4 major releases and minor releases. Just plan in advance major releases in order to be up to date with the OpenY. So getting back to schema. This is schema that we came up with and we use for all upgrades of the OpenY. Basically, we classify some of the OpenY components as altered whenever there is a small change. As example, again, you have a banner on the homepage or gallery and you added just one additional field with call to action link or something like this. This is small, this will not affect the upgrade path, and that's fine to have this. Then custom. Custom is something that you've specifically built for your website. Let's say you've built MailChimp subscription form in the sidebar and it's unique for your association. Or custom may be the component that is coming from the OpenY, but you've added so many things there, so it's no longer coming from the OpenY. So let's say with gallery, you've added not one field, you've added new image field, like headline, something like links to the external websites, and you actually customize more than 50% of that component. So it's no longer from the OpenY. It's no longer responsibility of the OpenY to support that component because it's your custom code. So now you have to take care about this. And then we have slightly simpler categories. New is something that is coming from the OpenY you would like to enable. Removed. This is something that you can actually remove from the website. Let's say you've had some legacy content type called, like, I don't know, announcements, and you no longer use it, or testimonials, so you can remove it. And not installed, just list of things that potentially at some point you may install on your website. So once you finalize schema, usually I do recommend to perform an audit. And what does it mean? Basically, you can create just a simple like table with 4 columns or even 3 columns. Just create a list of things that are on your website, and you can specify which are altered, which are custom, and which might be removed. At the end, as a deliverables of this, you will have the roadmap and current state of your OpenY website, which will help you to make decisions. What should be removed, what should be simplified, and at the same time, developers or agency, based on this document, they will understand how much effort is required for an upgrade. So once you have an inventory, you can actually start development, right? It became your roadmap. Step by step, you will work with developer or agency to perform an upgrade, and as an outcome, you will have OpenY on the latest version. You will have website on the latest OpenY version. Then once you've done with upgrade, my personal recommendation to perform a backporting. Again, here we came up with just high-level schema that helps to classify backporting items for backporting. So we basically classify them as the small things, medium, large, extra large, and extra, extra large, depending on level of effort. Let's say you've changed the color of the header and you would like to backport this to the OpenY, that will be a small thing. But let's say you've created MailChimp subscription form, that will approximately be medium or large. So once you've done like schema, and for your association it might be completely different one, you can do the same inventory of fixes. Let's say you have a OpenY road theme and you've done some fix, like the front page was completely white and there was nothing, and you fixed that and you would like to backport this, so you can put that here. Or you've created subscription form, you can state that here. So once you've done with this, I really encourage you to talk into the OpenY core team to figure out if it's really necessary to backport. So, and the main benefit of backporting, once you've backported, like it will be in the OpenY, and it will be moved from custom category to the used from the OpenY out of the box, and it will require like zero effort just to perform an upgrade to that specific thing. So actually I shared an example of like table with different columns, but it's not necessary to do that because you can work with your agency or developer in that way that they will actually, while they develop new things, they might change names of the components within the OpenY user interface. As example, you may see that activity and we have label custom. It means that it's fully custom. It has way more fills. So now it became a custom. Or branch. In branch, let's say we've added some additional phone number. It's a little bit altered and we have a label there. With that way, you even don't need to maintain some spreadsheets in the Google or something like that. You will have everything in the interface. You will need to spend 30 seconds to open up that page and you will see that you have like 10 custom components. And it means that next OpenY upgrade will take like many hours. But if you have nothing there, it will like 1 hour or something like that. So use OpenY user interface to do that. And the same you can do for components that you add to the landing pages. So I mentioned a couple of times integrations. Personify, ActiveNet, Daxco, GroupXPro, CCC, many other CRMs and third-party vendors. I just wanted to bring your attention that integrations are the biggest parts of the upgrades. That's true. That's lesson that we've learned. Whenever you have integration, have an assumption that this integration will take the significant amount of effort during upgrades. And this is a topic of completely different session, but usually this is the biggest part of upgrade, and that's kind of where we are now. But we are working on this as a part of the OpenY to simplify this. So again, it all about customizations. So, and you might be wondering if the customizations are their enemies or friends, because we've had two different like scenarios where we might spend 1 hour for upgrade or 500 hours, right? So there is no answer today because it will depend how you work with customizations or how your agency create customizations or custom features. And yeah, it's all about how you use them. But in order to simplify and in order to be on the same page in the OpenY community, we've kind of came up with the customizations funnel. It's just 4 simple questions that should be answered whenever you consider developing some new customizations. So the first one, do you really need this? As example was MailChimp subscription form in the sidebar. So let's say you've had that idea from marketing team to have subscription form on your website. So first, do you really need this? If there is a way to do not create that, maybe MailChimp provides some embedded code that you can insert to the page and spend 1 minute for that. Do you really need this? If you really need this, you can move on to the next question. Does it exist in the OpenY roadmap? So maybe with next major or point release, MailChimp subscription form will be part of the OpenY. And in order to double check that, you can use community board, you can use Trello roadmap, and you don't need to spend like budget for it if it's in 1 week or 1 month from now and it will be part of the OpenY. Just wait for a little bit and then it will be there. So if it's not in the OpenY roadmap, then move on to the next question. Have you discussed upgrade path costs with your developer or agency before you even started development? So let's say there are, again, MailChimp subscription form sidebar, and there is an option, build it and spend 5 hours and like deploy and launch on the production, right? But usually you need to curious how much it will cost to perform an OpenY upgrade with that form in the sidebar. Maybe you will spend 5 hours now, and then it will take 50 hours to perform an upgrade. Second option might be you might add additional 5 hours or 10 hours in order to build it, and then you will never like spend any hours for its upgrade. So it's really important before you even started working on it, make a decision how to create it properly so it will not affect the OpenY upgrades in the future. So once you've done this, move on to the backporting. So maybe it makes sense to backport, or maybe it makes sense even build it as a part of OpenY and then just enable on your website as a part of OpenY. For that, again, talk to the core team and figure out if it's really necessary for the OpenY. So once you know answers to 4 questions, once you went through that, please go ahead and develop with your agency partner or developer and launch on the website. So to summarize everything that we talked about today in the 5 simple steps, in the 5 simple recommendations. Schedule and perform OpenY upgrades in advance. You've seen that you need to keep your site up to date with latest OpenY versions. Plan them in advance with your developers. Please avoid customizations, but that's not realistic, so build it, but build them in the right way. Keep an inventory of OpenY components so you will always know, at least from the high level, the current state of things with your OpenY, and use that funnel 4 questions in order to develop OpenY customizations in the right way. So based on all of the things, we thought, what if we just create a PDF file with all these recommendations? And basically we did. We've created upgrade path cheat sheet, which you can download and use. So we kind of created their different sections, and there is a QR code. You can scan it. It will be available link. We will put it on the community board after this session as well. So hopefully you will find it helpful. You can share with your developers. And hopefully with this, instead of doing upgrades in this way, you will make them really fast and immediate, and you will spend your budgets instead of OpenY upgrades. You will spend them on innovations, mobile applications, smart assistants, TV applications, whatever is interesting for your Y and for your team. So yeah, this is it for today. Hopefully that was helpful, and we are ready to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions? Yep.
Yes, hi. Thank you for all this. I think this may have been covered on one of those cheat sheets, but could you maybe walk me through the process for, is there a vetting process we should go through or work with our developers to go through? Like if we're contemplating a certain customization, to be able to vet that for possibility for backporting or to analyze it for upgrading? Is that something the core team can work with us on to help vet or analyze?
I'll take it. So yes, the best way, as I mentioned in Alex, that if you have customizations, ask, because we like a proxy that can connect you with somebody else in the moment that also think about having the same functionality or already implemented it in some way. That's how we do shared cost, because in that case, if you like small Y, you have only one developer, and there is no way for you to backport it because it could be complicated sometimes, depending from the part of the system. So yes, it's better to connect to the core team, and in case if nobody else in the moment uses or want that feature, we'll put it in our roadmap, but with some prioritization. Because we can ask in our monthly calls, we can provide that. We usually do updates of the roadmap to gather feedback, because with more feedback, we can raise a demand. We know that it's possible. And then we can like connect together and build that feature with help of some agency, right? Or with your help, like, because we had an experience in the past when we were pulling code from some site on our end, like with our team, because it's not always possible for you to make that.
Yeah, and I can add to this, so just a few simple steps. So if you already developed that, or you're developing that, or considering, go ahead and just ask question in the community board or Slack. If there's any other YMCA who is interested or who built something like that. If yes or no, you can like go through different paths. If no, you can ask if there is anyone interested, and if there is demand, it really makes sense to backport and build it as part of OpenY. If no, then maybe it makes sense to keep it as a customization, because backporting also adds some additional work to Andrii and OpenY core team for like to do the maintenance. So then they are basically careful in order with things that they put into the distro in the platform.
Yeah, that's what I want to mention. Like, you could receive no for your answer because like there is no demand. But by asking us, we can provide you the best practices how you keep your customization decoupled for not fighting with pain during next upgrade. We also have that best practice, but right now we are in the like phase of OpenY when we'll be saying no more frequently, because we are not going to blow up OpenY with like multiple versions of banner. It makes no sense. Like, we need to build some best practice, and we need to also ship some documentation how you can do your customization and keep it up to date without any effort of maintenance. Thank you for question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for joining us in this journey.
Yeah, thank you very much. So no questions. Hopefully that's a good sign.
I hope so.
Yeah, if you will have, like, come to our exhibit space or use contact information, and yeah. Yeah, sure. Yep.
One more.
Yep. It will be in the community board, and anyway, it will be whenever you will
We'll post it into community board as all other sessions, so this will be available for you later. Thank you one more time.
Thank you.